Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of What's Bruin. I'm your host, Chris Nozick, as always, joined by my co-host, the one, the only, the epic, Dominic Tiano. Dom, how are you this week? I can't wait until we get some music to play in on that. But how are you this week?
Great. Epic? I don't know about that. But
And
it's great to be here on Bobby Orr's birthday. Um, you know, Gordie Howe made me a hockey fan. Bobby Orr made me a Bruins fan. So here we are. What is it, 75 years later
oh wow,
for Bobby? Is he
uh,
75 or 76?
I don't know. I wonder his hockey reference page probably has his age. I'll pull him up. We want to make sure we
I'm
were the right birthday. Let's see. He is 76.
76.
Oh, that's pretty cool. They put 76 and dash 000 days, and then they put happy birthday on Hockey Reference.
Cool.
Did not know
Cool.
that. Let's see. Oh, and they added a new
You know
little
what?
for the NHL's 100 greatest players.
Oh, they did?
Yep. You know how they have like the Hall of Fame two-time Cup winner,
Yeah.
All-Star? They added a new little tag for 2017-18 NHL's 100 greatest players.
Well, you know what? When the NHL is 200 years old, his name will still be on the list.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm reminded as a little kid after the Bruins won the cup in 1970. I wasn't a little kid, I was 10 years old when they won the cup in 70. And my father used to drag us to church every Sunday like a good Catholic person my dad was. And I'll never forget the priest standing up there and saying, just like Bobby Orr and Phil Esposito are superstars, so is Jesus Christ. And I will never, ever forget that.
You know who else is? David Pastrnak, Mr. Hat
Oh,
Trick himself.
yeah.
You know what, though? Aside from the goals, he's getting a whole bunch of assists this year, which is very nice to see.
Yeah. Um, it's when you think about it, you think, he hasn't hit 50 goals yet. But when you look at the assist column, and you go, man, he's doing it both ways now.
Yeah, he's definitely going to get some heart love this year. I think he's an underrated dark horse for votes. I don't think he'll win it just because you got guys like, McKinnon and McDavid and, Austin Matthews might hit 70 goals. And I mean, honestly, my favorite would probably be Kucherov if I'm voting today, just because Tampa's nowhere close to where they are without him. And
Yeah, it's hard to argue against that.
yeah, he's blowing everyone else on his team out of the water when it comes to points.
Yeah,
So, like,
yeah,
when you factor in the loss of Vasilevsky earlier in the season, like, don't get me wrong, McDavid and McKinnon and McCarr, like, there's 7 or 8 names that if they win, I will sit there and go, okay, yeah, makes sense. But
yep,
you remove Kucherov from that team, and that team is not even sniffing a wild card spot.
yeah, exactly, exactly. But you can make the argument that you remove Pasternak from Boston, and where would they be?
Well, let me ask you this. Would Pastrnak be able to carry Tampa the way Kucherov is if you switch the two players' places? They both play the wing, so we can kind of play this game a little bit.
Yeah, I think they would be.
Okay.
I think they would be. Um, you can flip it the other way. Right now the Bruins are number one in the league. Would they be in a playoff spot without David Pasternak?
I think they would be in a wild card race. I don't know if they would be first place. I don't think they would be, but I mean, if you look at the rest of this team, they've had their issues, and they still do. But obviously, if you don't have a David Pastrnak, then your approach at the deadline is very different. Your approach coming into the
Yeah.
season, free agency is very different. Like it does change the equation. Obviously, for Tampa, it does as well. I mean, that's why they went out. They addressed defense with the loss of Sergachev at the trade deadline. They went into LTIR, as did the Golden Knights, and half the league is in LTIR right now, which is why I think it's hilarious when people complain about it, because you name a team, they're probably in LTIR.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
At least the playoff team. So,
yeah.
it is what it is. Players will get injured.
So, and speaking of depth, Bruins made a solid addition to their depth for next season, locking in goaltender Michael DiPietro with a 1-year, 2-way contract, $775,000 for next season. And if I'm not mistaken, him and Linus Ullmark are the only two under contract right now for next year. Between
Well, they got Bischel on an AHL deal.
that's great.
He can
Right.
they could easily flip him to an NHL deal. But yeah, that's it. I expect Reed Dick will be signed to an NHL contract soon as Swift current season is over. I don't think the Bruins want to do it while he's in the playoff battle in the WHL, but you never know. They might. But I expect him to be signed.
With the signing of goaltenders, do you think this is a way to kind of light a little fire under the Jeremy Swayman deal?
No. Different level of goaltending.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but just in the sense of, we have other goaltenders, like, we want you here, but if you're not ready to do a deal, you know what I mean? Like, more so, I don't know. I don't know.
Because Michael DiPietro is not going to go in and give you half of what Jeremy Swayman gives you.
Could it be for Brandon Bussey? Kind of a way of getting a fire under him to do a deal?
No, because there's no rush to sign him. There really isn't. Like, I know everybody wants everybody under contract today, but
I mean, right?
There really is no rush.
So, like I said, right now this team's just trying to find its form for the playoffs, and so far, I like what I've seen from Andrew Peeke. What about you?
Yeah, I absolutely love it. This is the Peak that I thought we were getting. What was 2 years ago, not what he was in Columbus this year. Small sample size, though. I've got to see it over I don't know the remaining number of games. Yeah. I'm not going to base anything on a small sample size.
Yeah. I mean, that does kind of alter the question of, if the playoffs started today, what's your defensive lineup look like?
Well, for me, it depends on the opponent.
Okay. Well, I happen to have the standings right here, and right now we would be facing Detroit. Now, wait a day or two, and we could be facing as much as Buffalo. That wild card spot is up for grabs.
Peak is in my lineup. The right side for me would be McAvoy, Carlo, and Peak against Detroit. The left side, I don't know. Probably Lindholm, Grzelcyk, and I don't know. For me, honestly, it would be a toss-up between Waterspoon and Uh, I don't know. I like Detroit's speed.
I was just say, are you
Grizzly
giving
would
pause to maybe put Mason Lohrei in the lineup?
not against Detroit's speed. No,
No. Okay.
no. If it was a bigger, heavier team, um, I would put Lori in over Grizzly. Yeah.
Okay. So, because also fighting for it, you got the Islanders who are at 73 points. They're only 3 points behind the Red Wings. And surprisingly enough, the Washington Capitals who are only 1 point behind. And Washington has 2 games in hand on Detroit. So, if anybody can
Hmm.
overtake off of games in hand, it would be Washington. So, Washington, I mean, they're certainly not
I
as fast
just
as Detroit.
no, but I fear Matt Grizzly um, going to retrieve a puck when Tom Wilson is coming in on top of him.
No kidding.
Absolutely fear that. Even Ovechkin.
With
Ovechkin can hit to hurt.
Oh yeah, no, they hit hard over there in Washington, and New York even too, for that matter.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, if you would do Grizzly in the lineup, are you pairing him with McAvoy on the top pairing?
Yeah.
Because then you have more of a shutdown pair in Lindholm,
You,
Carlo.
yeah, you almost have to.
That's how I feel about it. If Grizz is in the lineup, in my opinion, I think you got to really pair him with McAvoy to get the most out of out of Grizz.
Yeah,
I would like to see it, and this is maybe more of a lineup for next year, but a combination of Lindholm, McAvoy, Lohrei, Carlo, Wotherspoon, Peak.
yeah. But let's get through this year before we talk about next year,
Hey,
because so much is going to change.
Lohrei and Wotherspoon could play themselves into that role over the next month.
Yeah,
So, and you know what? I wouldn't mind having Kevin Shattenkirk as our 7th D in the playoffs if those two can hang on to those roles. And then Grizzly would end up being the number 8 guy. And if he's healthy, Forbort now becomes your number 9 guy. This is defensive depth.
yeah,
Uh, Trey
yeah.
says, "Do you think the DiPietro signing means anything for Allmark? Um,
No, absolutely not.
do you think they have plans to explore the trade market again in the summer after the season is over for Linus Allmark?"
I will say this with 100% certainty is it's not even crossing their mind right now. It's not. They're not thinking about next year. They're thinking about uh, tomorrow night's game, and that's all they're thinking about. That's everybody from ownership down to management, down to the players, down to the training staff.
Yeah, I think the time to think about the long-term plan came and went with the trade deadline. And the
Yep.
only part of that is, will this help us long term and will it help us today? That's how they look at it. And when the season is over, sure, I'm sure they'll circle back and look at some of the teams. I know I heard Jersey was calling about them. We all heard the LA rumor, which I know you've said wasn't LA the team that was not the one that he shot down. I've heard Colorado mentioned. Like there's teams out there that are going to be looking for goaltenders, and Linus Olmark is going to play himself into interest. It's the best way to put it.
You know when they'll know. Like I said, they're not even considering it right now. They'll know when they sit down with Linus Allmark during the exit interviews. That's when the decision's going to be made.
Sure. Yeah. Trey, what do you think about
Now,
peak
but
so far? We'll come
back up to um, so with regards to DiPietro, and DiPietro does not affect what's going to happen at the NHL level. Brandon Bussey will before then. Um, yeah, DiPietro has to clear waivers to be sent down to Providence, and most likely he'll be the starter in Providence. I have little worries about anybody claiming DiPietro because once they put in a claim, he has to be on the NHL roster for the year.
Right.
If they try to send him down, they have to offer him to Boston first.
Makes sense.
Remember, we went through this with Malcolm Subban when who was it? Vegas claimed him.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
Then they
uh,
tried to sneak him down through waivers, and I think, but they had to offer him back to us first.
yeah, but Vegas was an expansion team that had no depth at any position, and that's why they made that claim. It's very, very, very rare that a goaltender gets claimed off waivers at the start of the season because most teams have their NHL goaltenders set. Well, every team does. And you're not going to claim a goaltender off the waiver wire that you have to keep on the roster all season.
Right, unless someone gets hurt in the middle of your training camp, like
Yeah.
if
Unless it's a guy like Brandon Bussey that teams will want to take a stab at.
right, and as an example, in Pittsburgh, you got Nedeljkovic backing up Jari. Well, if going into next year, assuming they're both under contract, let's say Nedeljkovic pulls a hamstring or destroys his knee in practice, going into training camp, and now they look at it and they go, well, we're done for the season with him or for a significant length of time. Now they may look at someone who's available on the waiver wire, like a Brandon Bussey type, where you look at him and go, he could be a viable starter, but he has to clear waivers, and we need that number 2, and we don't have someone who we think is that ready. He would get claimed.
Yeah, preseason waivers is all about timing. It's
Yeah.
all about when you put the player on waivers. You've got to know every other team's roster and what they're looking for and time it just perfectly to get a player through.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it last year with AJ Greer. AJ Greer didn't make it this year, but last year he made it through, and Lauko made it through. Boquist made it through this year. I mean, and look at the role he's playing in the fourth line right now. Like Jesper Boquist is playing a key role for this team on the fourth line right now. I don't think he'd make it through waivers if you waived him right now.
No, I doubt that he would.
So, and then Trey also adds to that thoughts on Peak so far since he's joined the lineup, which again, like you said, small sample size, but I do like what I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
I think
He's just going to have to maintain that. Like you look at his PDO is outrageous. Oh well, like I mean, PDO always falls back to 100%. Just the way the stat is calculated, but he's something like 148 right now, which is just unheard of. And um, his value, he's earning his contract value right now. But like I said, small sample size, going to have to see it for a lot longer stretch than what we've seen it now. But we know he battles. He blocks shots. He's not afraid to engage in front of the net or along the boards. So it was an area that the Bruins were lacking in, and they filled the need.
Yeah, and I mean, to put it in perspective, like McAvoy's played over 1,500 minutes this year. Andrew Peak has barely played over 400. So he's also fresh, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
You need fresh defensemen who do all those things. They get in the dirty areas, they block pucks, block shots, and all that good stuff. I think also one of the things that you look at with Andrew Peak is when he came over and they were talking to him about joining Boston, his saying of I just want to play hockey. Like, I feel like the fresh start is going to do him so much good because Boston's going to sit there and go, yeah, whatever they were doing over there, we don't give a shit. This is what we want you for. Just focus on this.
Yep.
And
they trust him.
Right.
Monty threw him out to kill a 5-on-3 yesterday.
Right. They're putting him in, and they're looking at him saying, "We want you to play a defensive game. Don't if there's offense there, great. We won't say no to it, but block shots, play tough, eat some hard minutes for us. Let us rest McAvoy, Lindholm, and Carlo. When you get out there, don't fuck it up. That's all we want you to do, and we trust you to
Yep.
do."
And he's doing it. And if he can take some of those hard minutes away from McAvoy on the PK, especially like that 5-on-3,
Yeah,
he's doing his job.
yeah, and it's one of those things with Hampus Lindholm. Everybody's been crapping all over the guy this year, but he is playing some of the hardest minutes. I want to say something like almost 80% of his faceoffs that he takes are in our defensive zone. So it's like the fact that he even has 24 points is almost miraculous based on how much he's starting in his own zone.
His minutes have been harder than Carlos.
Which is to say a lot because Carlo is
Yep.
our shutdown defenseman overall, probably.
Yep.
And he's the guy who has anchored our penalty kill for so long. So to sit there and say Lindholm is playing tougher minutes and he's played more of them, like he's got more minutes played, not by much, 1,400 to about 1,300 and some change in there, but he's still playing more. Like it's astounding. I don't know why people are crapping all over him. I get it, 24 points, you'd like to see more, but I mean, McAvoy's not even raking in points this year.
No, but you give Lindholm McAvoy's offensive opportunities, he's going to have a lot more points than he has. But it's not what Lindholm is there for right now.
No, you pair him with Carlos, have that shutdown pair of 6'3+ guys that play physical, that can get those minutes. You need to have someone else who can do it too, because one of them is eventually going to take a penalty. I mean, you can kill a penalty with Lindholm and Peak out there. That's fine.
You can.
Who
wasn't it Lindholm out with him on the 5-on-3?
I think it might have been, yeah. I think so.
I can't remember now. No, McAvoy was. McAvoy started it on the left side.
Okay.
With Peak.
Yeah, and again, don't get me wrong. McAvoy is still finding ways to put up points. He's 5th on the team in points, so it's not like he's been useless when it comes to generating offense. That's why I want to see a guy like Lohrei with Carlo, because then you have Lindholm, McAvoy, 2 top-tier two-way guys who can complement each other up front and in the D zone. Then you have a pair of Lohrei and Carlo, where Carlo's defensive acumen can help complement Lohrai's offensive acumen, and they kind of fill in where the other ones are weak, and they can both play to their strengths.
Yeah, but I don't want to see that in the playoffs.
No, I like this.
I don't want to see that in the playoffs.
I think this would be my starting 6 going into next year, because then you have Wotherspoon and Peak who can go in and fill in all rest.
Yeah, let's forget next year right now. Let's get through this season.
Let's get through this year.
I want McAvoy and Lindholm, one of the two, out there as much as possible over 60 minutes.
Yeah, and right now that covers about 45, actually about 50 minutes between the two. I think you can get them about 50 minutes total between the two of them.
Yeah, but some of that time is going to be spent together.
Yes, I would hope. So yeah, I mean, if you can cover 45 minutes with the two of them, one of the two or both of the two of them for about 45 minutes of the game,
you're in good position. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good position. And Carlo can then go in and, some of the guys, like even Kevin Shattenkirk, he's showing he can play both sides on the blue line. Wotherspoon has shown he can play left or right. So if you have a guy like Wotherspoon or even Shattenkirk in the lineup, then when you are giving, Lindholm a breather, you can slide Wotherspoon over and do Wotherspoon and Peak for a couple shifts. That way there Carlo can also get a rest.
Yeah.
I think unfortunately Grizz becomes the guy that it's kind of the situational matchup at that point. Are we on the power play?
You can only play him in one spot, and that's next to McAvoy. I don't think you can put him on the third pair.
I would want to see it over the next month a little bit just to see how he plays with a guy like Peak, because we did see some success when Grizz played with Carlo for a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit. And, Grizz Peak as a third pair isn't terrible, but I don't know how much I'd want to rely on it. I just want to know, does it work?
I wouldn't even want to try it, to be honest.
No?
No.
Just leave him
No,
with
I'm like Grizzlick's been fine the last couple of days or last couple of games, but I'm done with him. I really am. Like, what's he giving this team? He's not on the PK. He's not on the PP. He's supposed to be an offensive defenseman. He's not giving me offense, and I can't put him out against heavy teams. There's no way I would put him in the lineup against Washington. No way.
Yeah, and the fact that he's
But
only got
I'm not an NHL coach, so
yeah, he's got the same points as Beecher and John Beecher, by the way, coming in and helping with our face-off percentage a little bit. Everybody was looking forward to that. What do you think of the idea of him being on the wing except for a draw?
that's fine because um, right now, what I'm getting out of Boquist, I'm not giving up. He's in my lineup, and he's
Beecher,
a puck
Boquist,
possession guy. He needs to have the puck on his stick, or you know, to be effective, and that happens when you're down the middle. It doesn't happen as much when you're on the wing. Um,
in that line, Beecher.
if if you want to talk about lineup, it's what do you do when Pat Maroon comes in?
Yeah, I
Now,
gotta say, 2 good goals from Brazeau last night.
yeah, but my question is, can you play Maroon and Brazeau together?
That's a tough one.
I would try it if Maroon is back early enough. I would try, but I just can't imagine that team out there for an icing or that line out there for an icing and the opposition throws their top line out.
Yeah.
I just can't. The only way that I can see it is if you have Lindholm and McAvoy out with them.
Ooh. Lindholm.
So what do you do?
Here's my question.
I'm not taking Boquist out of the lineup. Lauko, while he can skate and provide a bit of energy, isn't coming in for Boquist for me because he has no offense. And I don't like Boquist on the third line. All right, sorry, Lauko on the third line. You might be able to get away um, with let's say putting Boquist on the third line with Frederick and Geeky and trying that, and having Beecher in the middle with Maroon and Brazeau. I mean, that's a huge line. Yeah. Okay, but then what do you do with Danton Heinen?
What do you do with JVR? What do you do with
Yeah, so there's your two guys. What do you? Well, we just said, but have Boquist between Frederick and Geeky,
between?
but then you've
Okay,
got Heinen and Van Riemsdyk.
yep. And hmm, I gotta say, I like how Heinen. I love how Heinen's playing. I wish there were more points coming
Mm-hmm.
his way. And obviously everyone's going to remember the empty netter that wasn't. But that's what happens when you have a left shot wing playing a left shot on the right wing. Sometimes it doesn't go your way like that. But I mean, Heinen's doing everything and then some. There's no reason to pull him out of
Mm-hmm.
the lineup. And the good thing with a guy like Heinen too is he can play anywhere in your lineup at any given moment. So I want Heinen on in the top 12 for the fact that if someone goes down, I don't care if Heinen's on my fourth line left wing. If Pasternak gets hurt for a shift and goes to the locker room to get checked out, I can put Heinen with Martian and Coyle and be okay. I'm not going to get the same production as I would out of Pasternak. Don't get me wrong, but he won't
No,
screw that line up.
but Pasternak hasn't been playing with Coyle and Marchand. He's been playing with Pasternak, and last night was Heinen.
Right.
Like, here's my thing: I'm not breaking up Brad Marchand, Charlie Coyle, and Jake DeBrusk.
Not
If it
not
was
unless
up
they're
to me, so who's the left wing for Pavel Zacha and David Pasternak? We've seen a mix of JVR and Danton Heinen there the last couple of games. But who's the regular left wing there? And I think that's what Monty's trying to figure out.
Would you give over the next month? Would you give Freddie a look there?
No, because I think he likes his third line. I think he likes Frederick and Geeky. He's trying to find somebody to fit with Frederick and Geeky. That's why he had Lauko there a couple of times. And he's
Yeah.
trying to find somebody to fit with Zaka and Pasta. And he's tried JVR and he's tried Heinen. Look, most NHL coaches think the same as I do. You don't think of it as a line, you think of them as pairs. So you
Right.
have your pairs: Aka Pasternak, Marchand Coyle, Frederick Geeky, and I don't know. On the fourth line right now, it looks like Boquist and Brazeau. And then you mix in the third guy to find out what works.
Yeah. That's a lot of what we saw when even Cassidy was here. Pairs
Yeah,
stuck together, and then that Bergeron, Marsh, and Pasternak line was just so good. You didn't want to break it up unless you absolutely had to.
right.
Um,
So I don't know. But back to my original question: when Maroon comes back, because you want Maroon in the lineup against a Washington. I'm not sure I
oh,
want him in the lineup against Toronto,
fair.
or if you're playing New Jersey or you're playing Detroit. Um, so like I think they have to try it. They have to
Yeah,
try.
I think a lot of
They
what
have
they're
to
doing.
try Brazil and Maroon. They have to try it.
Well, another thing with Maroon too is this year he's been playing well. When he was playing well. He's slow,
Mm-hmm.
but he was playing well, and he's had a great year passing the puck and just kind of adjusting his game for the fact that he is a slower person now. Like he's adapting. Now that's not to say I'm going to sit here and be like, oh well, put him on a line with Pasternak and Zaka and just say get there when you can. That's just dumb. But you never know what he's going to be like once he comes back from the back injury.
Okay, let me throw this one at you. Let's say he comes back and they try Maroon, Boquist, and Brazeau together, and it works. And they're one of the better scoring fourth lines. in in the NHL. Okay,
Yep.
so you could, to keep Beecher's face-offs, if he continues at the pace he's at, you could try Beecher on the third line between Frederick and Geeky.
Yep.
Okay,
I wouldn't.
Lauko comes out of the lineup. Lauko's the 13th forward. And now you've got to decide between Heinen and Van Riemsdyk as to who goes with Zaka and Pasternak.
And I think that could also be matchup as well, because I mean you've got good speed between Geeky, Beecher, and Frederick. I actually don't hate the look of that line as a third line. You know, Frederick has found a scoring touch. Beecher, the scoring isn't quite there, but you know, at the same time, he's had some opportunities and he's had some time where you can see that the brain and the hands don't always match up.
Mm-hmm.
But he's got speed, and half the battle is being where you need to be.
Yep.
I'll take. And Geeky is forming is rolling into form. He and Frederick. It doesn't matter. It doesn't seem to matter who the third guy is. When those two are together, good things seem to happen. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't hate that as a third line. And then to your point, Maroon, Boquist, and Brazeau, that's a beater line. Like that is, with a little bit of with some skill in there too. I mean, Brazeau with a nifty, that second goal that he had coming off the boards. That was the second attempt that he had at that type of shot. His net from
Look,
presence.
Brazeau has always had skill. He's always had skill. His biggest, he's finding a way for it to work for him in the NHL, and kudos to him. Uh, you know, his issue has always been that he's lacked the foot speed to get to where he needs to be. Again, kudos to him for figuring it out. Um, but in the meantime, Monty's been very careful of who he's had him out there with, making sure that it's somebody that's quick that can come back and cover for him when
Right.
it comes to defense.
And Maroon is not that guy. Maroon is not that fleet of foot guy that you
No.
put up there. That's where, I mean, would you think about Maroon, Beecher, Brazeau?
Well, I love the size, but is Beecher better suited to cover for them defensively than Boquist is? I mean, you have experience with Boquist.
True. Yeah, little bit more experience there. And with all this, I mean, you can, futz around with Beecher and Boquist, 3C, 4C, all that. That still doesn't answer the question. Who's your LW2? Van Riemsdyk or Heinen, and why?
Well, I don't have the answer to it. I really don't. And one more thing about Boquist. Like, we really shouldn't be surprised if you watched a lot in New Jersey. Jack Hughes said at the time that this was an underrated loss. It was going to be a big loss for the Devils.
Yeah. I see it.
Yeah.
I think, and Boquist is the guy that they wish they had when Thomas Nosek went down for 2 months this year.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
now let me run this by you as far as what you could do. Assume left side Marchand, JVR, and then Coyle, Zaka, DeBrusque, Pasta as your top six. Okay. Frederick, I would say Freddie, Beecher, and Geeky as your third line. Again, we'll have to check it and see how it works over the next month. Maroon, Boquist, Brazeau, and Heinen as a kind of cycling four-man unit. So you do basically Brazeau, Heinen, and Maroon, two of the three, and basically Heinen plays whichever offside. So if Maroon's on the left, you got Heinen on the right. If you put Brazeau in on the right, then you move Heinen over to the left.
Mm-hmm.
Then Maroon and Brazeau can kind of alternate games based off of whether it's matchup, whether it's, you want the experience. Like if I'm going into game 7 in the first round, I'm sorry, I want Pat Maroon out there. I don't want Justin Brazeau. If Maroon is healthy, I want him out there. And
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather go Maroon, Boquist, Heinen on that line. But if it's, game 3 and you're up 2-0, absolutely throw Brazeau in there. Give him some playoff experience. See what he can do. You move the reliable Heinen over to the left. That's the type of situation where I'm okay with a little bit more youth just to see where it goes.
Yeah, I mean they got time to experiment, and they're gonna have to. They're gonna have to because, uh, even if you count Lauco in there, and Maroon comes back, that's 14 NHL players up there,
Do you see
right?
Brazeau having a role on this team going into next year?
Yeah, I was and still am that the Bruins should have signed him, but should have signed him for next year, not this year.
I
I
think
still think that contract spot is too valuable to them right now. We've already seen them go sign 2 college free agents. When it comes down to Colin Graff or Jacob Quillen, you may need that contract spot. I'd love to get them both. I doubt we're going to get them both. Um, because they're probably going to go to a team that will let them burn a year off their entry level contract. I didn't like the Brazil signing, and I didn't like the Abadi signing for this year for that main reason. But yeah, Brazil has a spot on this in this organization next year.
so. Yeah, it would be helpful for them to get him some playoff time then, if possible, so that next year is a little bit, because obviously if they're making the playoffs this year, it's a good chance that they'll be in line for even a wild card spot next year, because next year they have so much money going into free agency, and
Hmm.
yes, some of it'll be going towards Swayman and some of the other free agents and stuff, but like Forbort, he'll be gone. Grizzlick, he'll be gone. Witherspoon's re-signed already. Shattenkirk will walk. Um, you know,
Peak is signed.
Peak is signed.
Laura's a year older.
You
Beecher's a
have a
year older.
starting six in your
Patra's Patra's a year older. You can't discount that. It all comes down to up front what they do with Jake DeBrusk.
man.
Now,
It's funny that
I've
that's
said it
the point.
I've said it a zillion times. Jake DeBrusk is at his best when he has stability in life, team, and teammates. And we're seeing it. Once trade deadline uh, came
Pass.
and went,
Yeah.
he's been at a different level. And that's what Jake DeBrusk needs. Now, what is that worth? I get asked every day, Dom, what is Jake DeBrusk worth? What do you think Jake DeBrusk is going to get? And I don't have a clue. I really don't.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if I'm smart enough to see it over the last 4 or 5 years, I'm sure Bruins management is smart enough to see it.
Yeah.
But they're
In his last
they're
5 games, where they've won 4 of them, he has a total of 6 points,
mhm.
3 goals.
Didn't I tell you that's what Jake DeBrusk needed?
Yep. Three, and the funny thing is it's an even split. 3 goals, 3 assists. We go all the way back. March 9th against Pittsburgh. 5-1 win, a goal and an assist. Next game was against St. Louis. Everyone sucked that game. Let's be real.
Hmm.
It was a 5-1 loss, no points. That's the only one he doesn't have a point in. The Montreal win in the OT winner, He got a goal. Philly 6-5 win, goal and an assist. Last night, Ottawa 6-2 win, an assist. He's back to scoring. It's
Yeah.
like you said, what is it worth? Well, if this is the kind of DeBrusk that we can get because he feels comfortable, secure, and knows what's coming day in and day out, I would feel comfortable giving him a little bit of a pay bump for a multi-year deal because he can do all the other things. Even when he wasn't scoring this year, when he was still feeling safe, it was that 2-week period leading into trade deadline when all the shitstorm of his name getting kicked around and all this other, that's when he started to falter again. He's been solid defensively. His 200-foot game has been solid all year. Regardless of points, that has been solid all year. So you got a guy
And
who can
now sign him to a contract, and how much more secure is he going to be?
Right. And I don't want to sit here and be like, oh, well, you got to give him a no trade clause to make him feel safe. You're here. We're not looking to move you unless you want to be moved. I mean, I think no trade clauses are handed out a little too frequently, but I can also sit here and say, you know what? If he wants a half the league no trade clause, like, okay, if it's gonna make him feel that much more secure,
Well, hold on. How old is Jake now?
right
How
now,
old is he
Jake
now?
DeBrusk is 27.
Okay, so he's eligible for it.
Yes. What is it? 26?
27.
27. Okay. Yeah, he's a little over 27 years of age. So I'll put it this way. I will offer him 4.5 by 6 with a 16 team no trade clause, or I would say remove the clause and I'll go as high as 5.5 over 6.
Well, I have a number in my head.
What's your number?
5.3.
Okay. I don't hate it.
I think that's the most that I would go.
5.3 makes sense. I was rounding it up a little bit, but yeah, 5.3. I mean, we could do 5.257998. I don't know.
No, that's the number I've had in my head for the last week.
How many years would you give him at the 5.3?
I would give him 3 years.
So take him right up till he's 30.
Yep.
Okay. Because at that point, yeah, that makes sense.
At that point, Fabian Lysel's got to be giving you more than Jake DeBrusk is.
Yes, that would make sense.
Right, and that's why I don't want to go more than 3 years.
Yeah, because Lysel will be.
So that's
he'll be off his ELC at that point.
Yeah. So to me, the number I'm most comfortable with is 3 years, $5.3 million.
Now, if it's going to make him feel more comfortable, would you do any sort of no trade protection?
No. Not the type of player I would hand out a no trade clause to. If he wants some sort of protection, it's, okay, here's a 3-team no trade clause.
I would even go so far as to say, yep.
What did Forber get? Forber got 3-team, I believe.
He got a little bit of say in it, yeah. I mean, I would say like here's 10 teams in the first year, 5 teams in the second year, and by the third year you have a 3.
I wouldn't even go that much. Here it is, Jake. 3 years, $5.3 million. We'll give you a 3-team no trade list or clause. And you know what? Just in case, we know the money may be a little bit less than you wanted. Here's $1 million signing bonus for 2026, and there's your lockout protection.
Okay. That makes sense because that bumps the AAV up a little bit for the cap hit. But
No, that's included in there.
oh,
So it
that's
would be a
included?
yeah, that would be a $4.2 million or $4.3 million salary plus $1 million signing bonus.
Okay,
Still be a 5.3 million AAV.
that makes sense. And then, like you said, there's some lockout protection by getting the signing bonus. You're not getting a full salary, but you get the bonus, and it's better than nothing. I mean, I don't
Right.
know. And if another team's going to come along and be like, "Here's 5 by 5," let them go.
If they're doing 5 times 5, I talk to them about the money. I may come up on the money to 5 like 200,000 bucks on $87 million cap is peanuts. So I can make that work.
Okay,
But Jake, you love it here, but we can't go more than 3 years.
right.
And you think Jake is gonna leave everything? The only team he's known and the only place he wants to be to get security for 2 extra years? I don't know that he would if the
Right,
money's a wash.
right. If the money's a wash, you may opt to stick around and kind of say, "Okay, we'll address it in 3 more years, see where he's
Yep.
at." Because at the age of 30, if you can get him for a reasonable number to be a third line winger, he's not the worst third line winger to have.
No.
And who knows where he'll be. I mean, again, if another team's willing to blow your offer out of the water, if, Anaheim comes along and they're like, "Here's 7 million for 7 years," have
See
fun.
ya.
Have fun. Hopefully they can
Yep.
find you, for 30 goals here and there. Like it just, and that's one thing that Sweeney has done really, really well. He's always done well at re-signing his own guys or not re-signing his own guys. I mean, Torrey Krug, they
Right.
opted not to sign him, and now look
Mm-hmm.
at him. Again, he's a serviceable NHL defenseman, but he's way overpaid for what you get.
Yeah.
He's going to let Grzelcyk walk. He has paired Grzelcyk. I guess you could say Grzelcyk got one too many years on this contract. But you know what? It was multiple contracts that you've had Grzelcyk for. Let's not forget that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
even the guys
Exactly.
that and even Grzelcyk, like, yeah, you could say it's a year too long, but like right now you're sitting here going, I'm sure he's done. Like, I'm sure I don't want to re-sign him going into next year. If you came out of last year and you had to re-sign Grzelcyk, you were probably re-signing him for more than you should.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the length of this contract, 4 years, was perfect. The one before that, 2 years. The one before that, 2 years. So you have gotten, what is that? For 8 years
Eight
out of that
years.
Grzelcyk, and you've gotten the best that you could out of him. That's
Yeah.
not a bad. That's not a bad 8-year window.
No, it's not. It's not. But I just don't see how he fits in this lineup next year.
Oh
I
no, me
don't.
neither.
I have a hard time figuring out how he fits into the playoffs.
Yeah, but you know what? Sweeney also nailed it on Connor Clifton. 2 years
Mm-hmm.
from 18 to 20, and then you got the 3-year deal at 1 million AAV, and then he let him walk.
Mm-hmm.
Buffalo overextended 3 and change for 3 years, and you're not getting the same thing from him. Sweeney has
No.
nailed free agency overall, especially when it comes to the guy. Like, I'll put it this way: people still sit here and complain about Don Sweeney as a general manager. There are 31 other teams that would welcome him aboard their staff.
Sure.
I don't even know, like,
Sure.
okay,
If Sweeney was out of a job tomorrow,
he'd be hired the
would
next day.
get maybe not the next day, but he would get rehired. Like he's won GM of the year once,
He almost won it
right?
twice.
That
If
was he should
minus
have
one
he should have
time.
won it last year. He should have won it last year, except for one mistake he made, which we won't get into.
No, we don't.
And he could be in the top 5 this year.
Yeah. I mean, everybody likes to talk about, the Hart Trophy. And, we were talking about that earlier in the show. But, right now, who's your GM of the year? Sweeney's up there.
He's up there.
Like, people put a lot of stock in what he was able to do with the loss of David Krejci and Patrice Bergeron.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of crippling this team by trading away a goaltender and 6 other pieces to create cap space, he moved one guy, Taylor Hall.
Yep.
And then he used that money and he brought in essentially 5 guys. You got Poitras on that money. You got Shattenkirk on that money. JVR on the money. Heinen on the money.
Morgan Geekie.
Geeky all fit under that money. Let's see who else.
Milan Lucic.
Yeah, you could fit Milan under that. I mean, that one didn't work. Okay, so he's 5 for 6.
Well, it's not his fault it didn't work.
Right, and that one's not even his fault. The 4 games that Lucic played, he looked real fucking good.
He did. I was going to say, he looked great in 4 games.
It's a short sample size, just like with Andrew Peak. But you know what? When he identified a player in Jacobs Borrell, who he didn't even waste that asset. He got rid of him in the Peak deal. Like you said last week, you probably could have got Andrew Peak for a 4th round draft pick, but you get rid of the contract of Jacobs Borrell by bumping it up to a 3rd.
Yeah.
And Columbus does it because it gets a contract off of their books for next year, and they don't have to buy him out. There was talks they were going to buy out Andrew Peak. They don't have to worry about that anymore.
That was all media talk. There's no evidence that they were going to buy him out. No evidence whatsoever.
I never saw it, but
look, Columbus made a mistake when they had defensemen under contract and they went after free agents and brought in more defensemen. And you know what? The general manager, Jarmo Kekalainen, no longer has a job. It wasn't Peak's fault. That was management's fault. John Davidson rectified the situation by firing the GM. Probably something he should have done a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, it's funny how much rope a 4-game sweep of the Tampa Bay Lightning got Jarmo.
Yeah. Now, that said, I would love Jarmo to come to Boston as a scout.
Oh, yeah. He can scout. Oh, man.
Yeah, he can find talent.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, if you look at their lineup right now, Boone Jenner, they drafted him. Tessier, they drafted him. Fantilli, Marchenko, Cylinder, all drafted by them. Like, they traded for Alex Nylander. That even looks like a good move. Although, was that was at the deadline? That was by Davidson, right?
Yeah.
They drafted Merzlikins. They drafted Tarasov. They drafted who's the one up in Ottawa right now that went to LA last year? Korpisalo. They drafted Korpisalo. And
they drafted Werenski.
Yeah, he's not having a great year in Ottawa, but you know what? If you actually watch Korpisalo, like, he's not getting great support in front of him.
No,
that much.
He's not.
Like,
so give me Jarmo as a scout. I'd be more than happy to take him on as a scout.
Oh yeah, and then also if you look in their minor league system too, I mean they've got plenty of guys that they've drafted. David Juracek. Like they've got they've got guys in their system that they've drafted
Mm-hmm.
that, I don't know I don't know if Davidson's going to try and keep the job for himself or if I'm guessing he's going to try to hire somebody. Someone will get knocked
Oh,
free.
he will. Yeah.
The question is who? Who do you think is the first GM that has to worry about their job come summertime?
I don't know. I really don't know. You know who will make a great GM is Steve Stais.
Oh, yeah, over in Ottawa?
Yeah.
Yep. I don't see him going anywhere. Breeze was not going anywhere in Tampa. What's his name? Brad Treliving's not going anywhere from Toronto. I don't see Montreal making a change at this time.
No.
I'm trying to remember who they have right now. Kent Hughes. How long has he been there? He only recently
2
took
years?
over, right?
Yeah.
January 18th, 2022. So yeah, 2 years, 2 months, 2 days. Wow. That's ironic. I don't see them moving on from him at least not right away. I mean, he's got work to do for sure, but they knew that when they hired him.
But yeah. You can't bring a GM and not give him 5 years. A GM needs basically 5 years to put his rubber stamp on a team.
Yeah, Zito's not going anywhere in Florida. Yzerman's not going anywhere in Detroit. Sweeney's not leaving Boston. Could Buffalo move on from Kevin? Not Kevin. Is Kevin Adams the GM or is he the coach? Kevin Adams is the GM. Don Granado's the coach. Kevin Adams has been there as general manager for
4 years?
Almost 4 years, 3 years, 9 months.
Hey, I'm doing pretty good there, aren't I?
Yeah. I'm impressed on that one. 3 years, 9 months, 4 days. So you know what? That rounds up to 4 years to me. So I'll take it. Yeah, it's tough when they're hired in June. But is Kevin I think Kevin Adams also has another coaching cycle in him in the sense that Granado's been there now for total. He had a 2-year deal. And then he had another year.
Granado was there before Adams, wasn't he? No, he wasn't. He came in after Adams.
He was the interim head coach for 3 months and 11 days.
Yeah.
He was assistant for a year, a little under 2 years. No, because he went from the Blues to the Blackhawks to the Sabres as assistant coach. Then he was named the interim head coach March 17th, 2021. After 3 months and 11 days, they removed the interim tag. And now 2 years, 8 months, 20 days later, he is still the head coach. So my guess is between the interim time and the non-interim time, after this year, there may be some conversation as to whether or not he makes it past next year.
Yeah. You want a long shot of a possible GM for Columbus who's not in the NHL is Mark Hunter from the London Knights.
Could they make a push for a guy like Evan Gold?
They could, but I don't think Gold is going anywhere.
No,
I really don't. Yeah.
I mean, that's the other thing is once you get to a point where you're comfortable with where you are, it takes a little bit to move you. Dubas is fresh in Pittsburgh. Briere's doing fantastic.
You know who I could see? You know who could be leaving Boston and going to Ottawa as a head coach is Chris Kelly.
That would be interesting. You think they'd bring him in as a coach, as a head coach?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Who would you replace him with if you're Boston?
Well, I don't know. That's the thing. Like, one thing we know about the Bruins, if another team comes calling and asking for permission, the Bruins are not going to say no.
Right.
They've granted permission for everybody to to move on and better themselves,
Well, that's part of
for
why
lack of a better term.
that's part of why people like being in the organization, because they
Yeah.
will help you be better at what you do now and position you to be in a better position to do something later. If it's with them, that's
Hmm.
awesome. If it's not, that's okay too.
Now, if you're Ottawa, why wouldn't you want to bring in Chris Kelly? It's the winningest team in the NHL over the last two seasons, where he's been an assistant coach.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's not exactly like they're just gonna say, Jacques Martin, thanks for everything you've done. Have a nice life. They'll be able to keep him
No,
around.
but Martin's only there as an interim.
Right, right. He still has the interim tag on him. He's had
Yeah,
it since December.
I don't think he wants. I don't think he wants the full time coaching gig.
No, I mean, let's face it. They brought him in as a senior advisor for 12 days. They knew they
Hmm.
were making a coaching change. They just
Yeah,
didn't know if they knew who they wanted to replace him. He's been a senior. He's 71 years old. You think he wants to stay on the
yeah.
bench?
No, he doesn't.
I don't think so. Even I'm not that thick. I know he wants to get off the bench. A senior advisor role, sure. I'm sure he would take it. You
Yeah.
know, consult with Chris Kelly, help develop him as a head coach. That's something that he
Hmm.
may want to do because that allows him to work with the general manager. It allows him to stay in the game. It allows him to work less hours, but still be
Hmm.
involved. And let's face it, someone like Jacques Martin as a senior advisor, the money's going to be good.
Yeah.
And this is a team that uh, essentially reeks of needing that kind of fresh start.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, I think they're going to be an interesting team to look at in the offseason when it comes to, a true hockey trade. Um, do you believe the rumors that Brady Tkachuk was actually put on the trade block during the trade deadline?
No.
I can't
No.
bring my.
Absolutely not.
I feel like the guys that aren't going anywhere, Tkachuk is at the top of the list, probably followed by Batherson and Stützle in that order. And then you look at your blue line.
Sanderson for me is not going anywhere. I
Yeah,
would move
that's right.
Shabbat or Chikrin.
You would.
They've got to move a defenseman. They've absolutely got to move a defenseman.
I was going to say when I say then I look at my blue line, I go Sanderson's the number one guy that I'm not moving from there.
Yeah.
He's on the left side,
Now
so then you have Shabbat and Chikrin who can also play the left side. So
Shabbat's had a really bad year, although he's picked it up lately.
well, who's going to want to trade for him at $8 million AAV for the
Well,
next
that's
4?
just it.
Like
I don't know.
you got Chikrin till he's
But
27 at 4.6. So you basically get 1 year of Chikrin. But then you can talk with him extension once January 1st comes around.
mm-hmm.
That's interesting. I like Zub at his deal. I probably wouldn't look to move from him if I didn't have to. 4.6 at the age 28 next year and 2 more. I wouldn't be jumping at the bit to trade him, but if I can get a good piece or good assets for him, sure.
I'm telling you, don't underestimate this Ottawa Senators ownership group. They know how to put a winning hockey team together.
I was just saying, I'm not. I mean, Steve Sayo seems to be getting a feel for what he has, and he's acting
Mm-hmm.
slow. I think what the way I'm looking at it is he's looking at it to try to get precision, and those are the
Yeah.
GMs that kind of, I don't want to say scare me, but like, going into next year, he's not going to have retained money on Matt Murray, and he's not going to have retained money on Tarasenko. So That right there is $4 million that comes off the books, and he didn't even lift a
Mm-hmm.
finger. The only one he did that with was Tarasenko, and that was because he didn't want to be there anymore.
Yeah.
And he didn't sign the contract, so it's just, okay, let's get an asset for him. And they got what, a third-round pick? Yeah, upgrades
Yeah.
to a 2026 third-round pick if Florida wins the Stanley Cup in 23-24. It's a 2024 fourth, upgrades to a 2026 third if Florida wins the Cup. So now my question to you is, looking at this Bruins team, they took the lead back from Florida, which I am thankful for. I don't know if I don't remember if I told you this, but at the very beginning of the year, coming into the year, I threw a small bet down on the Bruins to win the division.
I was I was watching the show. It was a live show where you said the Bruins were going to win the division and you were going to place a bet on it.
Not a large bet, but enough where I just sit there and I go, a couple weeks ago when Florida was like 1 point behind, and then like 2 days later they passed them. Right at
Mm-hmm.
that point, it was like you could cash out for a little bit of a win, and I was so tempted to do it. Then Florida passed them, and I was like, "Well, I can't cash out now; I'll lose all my money." So I
Yeah.
waited. They're 3 points ahead. I'm sitting here going, I the temptation to cash out
But
is so.
Florida does have 2 games in hand though.
That's why, because if they win those 2 games in hand, they pass them. If they go
Mm-hmm.
500 in those 2 games in hand, oh
They
man,
don't.
they have the tiebreaker in regulation wins.
And they go head to head next week, do they not?
I
Is it
believe so.
next week or the week after?
I
Next
don't
week.
remember off the top of my head, but I'm sitting here going, I'm flip flopping so bad, but it was like a plus 450 payout. So like it's one of those things where it's like I want to be able to take it because I want to take the win, but did I really win if I cash out?
No, you don't.
Exactly. So I'm gonna let it ride. I already didn't get my division winners because I had New Jersey winning, and that's not happening. No, certainly didn't pick Vancouver. Although Edmonton's playing hot enough, and with 3 games in hand, they could catch Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
And do you really want to finish first in the West and play Vegas in the first round?
No.
That's like finishing second in
No.
the East and having to face Tampa in the first round.
Right. Exactly.
Oh, that's why I want Boston to finish first. I'd rather them take on Detroit, Washington, New York, hell, even Buffalo. Right now, Detroit, 76 points, has that second wild card. You have all the way down to New Jersey at 70, who have a chance to realistically catch them. Jake Allen looks fantastic for the Devils.
I think the Devils are done.
Jake Allen looks good for him. He is, let's see, 1, 2, 3-2 in his last 5 games for him. Goals against 2, 2, 2, 3, and 4. That's dating back to shortly after they got him, or no, yeah, that was, let's see, the deadline was the 18th. No, that was 2 days ago. It
No,
was
the 8th.
the 8th. So his first game for them was the 14th against Dallas, and that was a 6-2 win. Then they played Vegas, and he lost 3-1. And then he played Pitt, and they won 5-2. But it's 35, 34, and 36 save games. And rumor has it is he blocked a trade to New Jersey earlier in the year because he didn't think he was going to get the playing time.
Do you know what I say about rumors?
Oh, yeah. I know. And honestly, I look at New Jersey and I see too many rungs on the ladder. they may do what they need to do. The problem is they need Buffalo, New York, Washington, and Detroit. They need 4 teams to screw up.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different if you're the Islanders and you need the Washington Capitals and the Detroit Red Wings to screw up, and you have a game in hand on one of them.
It's bad enough having to jump one team, let alone 2 or 4.
But I got to tell you right now,
Especially 3-point games.
right. I will say this though, the team I'm rooting for to do it, just because it would be fun to see them actually break in, would be the Buffalo Sabres. However, they're a
Yeah.
team that Bowen Byram looks good in a Sabres uniform.
Mm-hmm.
And UPL is playing outstanding right now. I know they're kind of working with Devin Levi and working him in with Comrie, but UPL in his last 5 games, he's 4-1. He's allowed, 10 goals total in those 5 games. He's beaten Seattle, the Islanders, Detroit, and Edmonton in a shootout. Like, he's looking good this year. 915 save percentage, sub 2.4 goals against.
Yeah. But we talked about him last week. It's like,
He's got to
here's
keep it up.
my thing. We're almost out of time. We're here to talk Bruins, and we're talking everything but Bruins. Is there any questions we got to get to before we end this?
Let me ask you this from the Bruins perspective of those teams, because remember, last year
You're going
faced
to ask me who I want to face, right?
which
That's
team
what you're going to ask. I'm not going there.
Not going there yet.
I'm not going there ever. I never do. It's like last year, everybody wanted to face Florida because they thought that was the easy team.
I didn't say that.
I
did not say that.
And I'm saying, like, be careful what you wish for, guys. You don't hope for an opponent. You play what's put in front of you.
I'm
not
looking forward to Florida last year.
Nobody scares me. Nobody's easy for me. It's who's in front of you.
This is a team that's built in a way that has to play their best hockey in the playoffs. They have to play a physical game, and the good news is they have a ramp to get there. It doesn't start tomorrow. We can go through some of the lineup questions that we have. And I truly think that's what Montgomery is doing. I know it's driven a lot of people crazy this year to watch the line combinations juggle seemingly every 5 minutes, but I really do think he's taking note of, okay, Lauko with this guy plays this way. With this other pairing, he plays this way. And I do think, like you said, they're looking at it in terms of pairs. Marchand, Coyle, DeBrusk has been solid all year, and they're not really toying with that because they know it works. They may move DeBrusk around a little bit, but then shift them back to those guys.
And they have their own analytics.
Yeah,
not the analytics you and I look up. Those aren't analytics. Those are things fans came up with. The Bruins have their own analytics that tells them what's working and what's not working.
I do have a question because I am looking at the Bruins cap friendly page, and I noticed that they still list John Beecher as an emergency recall. Do you recall him being an emergency recall?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, when
who was it? Oh, when
who was hurt?
No, I think Coyle was.
Van Riemsdyk was sick.
Coyle was sick at first, so they called up Beecher. Then Coyle ended up playing, so they sent him back down after the game, and then they called him back up because it was JVR and Grizzly.
JVR was sick. Yeah,
and Grizzly was sick too because that's okay. So with him still listed as an emergency recall, How long until they either have to make the recall, a normal recall, or before they send
9
them?
games.
Okay, so they still got some time.
Yeah. It's when you see them say, when I believe Cap Friendly calls it set to roster, that means he's been switched to a regular recall.
Okay.
I
Now,
believe that's what they call it.
as an emergency recall, does he count against the salary cap?
Yes. Every player counts against the cap.
I'm asking for some of those who are watching who may not know.
Every pl- if you're on the roster, you count on the cap. The only time you do not count on the cap is if you have to play the previous game with under 20 players on the roster, and then you're allowed to bring up a player who makes league minimum and not have him count against the cap. And the
Now,
Bruins don't have anybody on league minimum.
is that the league minimum plus 100K rule,
No,
or is that just an
it's league
emergency recall?
minimum.
Okay,
League minimum.
just making sure we clarify for everybody. Now, when the time comes, do you look at, because right now the only ones that you can send back to Providence are Beecher and Brazeau.
And Lori.
Oh yes, and Lori. Um, who do you send first? Did I stump you?
I hate to say it, but Lori would be the first one I send down.
I get it.
But why? But why are we sending anybody down?
Well, because at some point Beecher's not going to be eligible to be an emergency loan, so you
No,
either
but
have
then
to.
they make him a regular recall.
Are
You're
they going to
allowed
have?
more than 20. But yeah, he's counting against the cap now.
Okay, fair. All right.
If they didn't have the cap space, they wouldn't be able to call him up.
Yeah, so I guess just switch him over. Um,
And
Rangers on.
there's no 23-man roster limit, so
I,
they're
I think
fine.
I think he's played his way onto this roster. I really do. Beecher. I think Brazeau, the big body, he's playing well in front of the net. I think he's done enough to stick around. And same thing with Laura. I don't think you send any of them down. At least through the end of the season. So we got the
Yeah,
Rangers coming in Thursday. Saturday we go to Philly. And then Tuesday we have a game in Florida against previously discussed Panthers. Do we is it Swayman tomorrow against New York?
yeah.
So it's Swayman,
Swayman versus Shesterkin.
Allmark versus probably who's the kid over there in Philly now? Urson.
I don't know who I don't know who it would be for Philly starting.
And then you have 2 days off. Sunday, Monday, you play Tuesday. Who do you go in net with against Florida?
Oh, it'll be Swayman. You keep the rotation going.
Even though Allmark is playing so much better after the break than Swayman is after the
You
deadline.
you got to get Swayman back. You can't pull him out because he's had a couple of rough games. You have to get him back in there to get him back to the level he needs to be at.
And then you got Wednesday, Tampa. So back to back, Florida and Tampa, both on the road. I mean,
Doesn't Florida have 4 days off before the game against Boston?
let me check that Florida schedule.
I know they got a 4-day layoff coming up.
Um, let's see, March 21st, the Thursday, then they play Saturday, Sunday, Monday they're off, then they play us. So then after that, they play Thursday, Saturday, Monday.
So they're in their 4-day layoff now. So they don't play till tomorrow.
They play tomorrow, the 21st.
So they're coming off 4 days off.
Yep. The Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and today are their 4 days off.
What a fucking memory, eh?
You are nails today, my friend.
Wow.
You
I
are
don't know. Like, I wouldn't want to be them coming off 4 days for a 4-day layoff.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. And their last game was to Tampa.
Who are they playing?
Their last game was against Tampa. I'm pulling up
No, who are they playing tomorrow?
tomorrow. Oh, the Hurricane. Nope. Hold on. That didn't shift over the way it was supposed to. Tomorrow, Thursday, they are home against Nashville.
That'd be tough for them.
Nashville's favored Florida's favored in the game, but not by much. So it'll be interesting. But so we got a couple more games. I mean, this is as they say the dog days, but this is where we kind of keep.
So this is not the dog days now. This next
we're
week,
out of the dog days.
This next week is going to be big for where they finish.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. Right now, I just want to see how they work the lineup and how guys play with each other, how they continue to work peak into the lineup. And I'm looking forward to seeing some updates on Patrick Maroon's health status.
Yeah, there's been nothing yet, eh? We don't even know if he's on skates.
No, they pulled him off skating. Minnesota had him skating, and then like a week ago when they first got him, Boston pulled him back from skating. So
yeah, but there's nothing since then on whether he's been back on or not.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting. Right now, I want to see the lineup. I want to see how they keep playing. Like you said, it's a crucial week to see how they finish. I will not cash my bet out. I promise. No matter how much Florida makes me want to sometimes.
Look, tomorrow they could be as many as 5 points up or as little as 1 point up.
I know, that's my point.
I can't come out and say Florida's going to win tomorrow coming off a 4-day layoff and it being Nashville. I don't care whether they're playing at home or on the road. Nashville will give them a run.
That's a good
but then we got the Rangers and
that's a dark horse bet though. If you're just looking for a single, puck line to play or money line to play or whatever it is, just small bet on Nashville to win that, because I agree with you. They're coming off 4 days rest. They're going to have a little bit of rust. Nashville's been playing really, really well. I wouldn't put it past Nashville to go in there and take 2 points.
No, neither would I. But I can't say that the Bruins are going to have an easy time against the Rangers either.
No, God, no. The benefit for them is that it's at home.
Yeah.
And maybe you see Jonathan Quick tomorrow, but either way, it's going to be a tough matchup. I'm looking forward to it. I can ramble all night about the Bees, but we're getting close to the 8 o'clock hour here. What final thoughts do you have this week, my friend?
I don't know. I'm looking at the next 5 to 7 days with a lot of anticipation, some anxiety, and some nervousness, which usually doesn't happen for me when it comes to hockey because I just take it as it comes. But I don't know. It's, Don Sweeney is in GM meetings now, or I believe they're finished now. I'm curious to see what other college free agent they take a run at? Because I do think there's another one coming. And in terms of the Bruins on the ice, I'm curious to see how Monty begins to set the roster for the playoffs.
Well, we'll get a good run here because 10 of their next 11 opponents are currently in the playoffs. And the one team that's not is the Pittsburgh Penguins.
So, interesting times coming.
Yeah. And now, granted, Washington's in there a couple times. They're in and out of the playoff spot. They're jockeying with, but Washington and Pittsburgh are the two teams that are not in the playoffs that they play over this next 11 game run. You got Carolina a couple times, Florida a couple times, Tampa a couple times. Like, it's a tough stretch of hockey, but you know what? Now's the time I want to see it. Nashville's in there. Who else did I see in there? Philly, Tampa, as I mentioned, like, tough stretch, but it's the stretch that you want to see them have as they go into a playoff run.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, I mean, that's all I got other than the final Go Bees.
Go Bees.